Martin looked over and saw Alana watching him. Her eyes were softer these days, less guarded. He reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For waiting," he whispered. "For letting me find her. And you." Alana leaned her head against his shoulder. Zuri giggled nearby, holding up another drawing, this one with a cape and a big M on a stick figure's chest. "This one's you, Dad," she said proudly. "You're my superhero." Martin smiled. He had built empires. But this was the greatest legacy of all. For Alana, things changed too. Martin called her into his office one afternoon, not as a boss, but as someone who finally saw her. "I've watched how you carry yourself," he told her. "You've been working behind the scenes for years, and I've never truly acknowledged that." She shifted uncomfortably. "It was just a job." "It wasn't just anything," he replied. "You've held this place together more than you know." Then he slid a packet across the desk, an enrollment form for a prestigious hospitality management school. Full tuition, books, and childcare covered. Alana blinked. "Why?" "Not because I owe you," Martin said, his voice warm, "but because you gave me something I didn't know I was missing." Her eyes glistened. She didn't say anything, just nodded. Father's Day arrived not long after. Martin hadn't expected anything. Truthfully, the holiday had always meant little to him. But that morning, he found a folded sheet of paper waiting for him on his office chair. Zuri had drawn it herself. Thick lines, rainbow crayon, stick figures. 3 people. Her, Alana, and Martin, all holding hands. The sun was big and yellow in the corner. There was a tree, a house, a flower with a smiling face. And above it all, in bold rainbow lettering, "My family." Martin stared at it for a long time. It was imperfect, messy. The lines didn't match. The colors ran into each other. But to him, it was more beautiful than any painting in his penthouse. He framed it that afternoon, hung it in his office, right where the oil portrait of his first hotel used to be. Because this was his legacy now. Not steel skyscrapers, not signature suites, but love. A child's love, a woman's courage, a family built not by design, but by grace. That evening, they sat on the townhouse porch, Martin, Alana, and Zuri. The stars twinkled above them as Zuri hummed to herself, doodling on the back of a napkin. He made space in his calendar where there had once been none. And slowly, Zuri came to him, not out of obligation, but out of trust. At first, she called him Mr. Martin. Then Boss Dad, as a joke from the lobby TV nickname she'd given him. And then, one rainy Sunday afternoon while they were coloring side by side on the floor of her new bedroom, she looked up at him with a gap-toothed grin and said, "Dad, can you pass me the blue crayon?" Martin had frozen, not out of surprise, but out of something deeper, something fragile, like hearing music you thought you'd lost forever. He passed her the crayon with a smile that didn't fade for the rest of the day. One of the first things he did was buy them a home, a modest townhouse just a few blocks from the hotel. It wasn't a mansion, and it wasn't extravagant, but it had a little garden, sunlight in the mornings, and a bedroom for Zuri with pink walls and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. He made sure it was in Alana's name, not his. No strings, no control, just safety, security, a new beginning. He didn't force co-parenting, didn't march in with court orders or demands. He let Alana lead, and she, too, slowly let down her walls. For the hotel staff, it was a shock at first. The whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you hear? The little girl in the pink dress? She's his. And a mother? She's been here for years." But Martin didn't care. He walked proudly through the lobby with Zuri's tiny hand wrapped in his. She wore sparkly shoes and carried a juice box. She waved at the doorman, sat at the front desk like a little manager in training. He even cleared out an office near his own and stocked it with crayons, toys, and a beanbag chair, Zuri's unofficial hideout when she waited for him between school and home. There are no more secrets, no more shame. This was his daughter, and he was her father. Alana blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he hesitated, struggling for the right words. "A real home. A future that doesn't involve worrying about rent. Or she'll have school supplies. Or shoes that fit. I provide for her," Alana said defensively. "I know you do," he said quickly, his voice gentle. You've done an amazing job, but you shouldn't have had to do it alone. Alana looked away. Martin stepped forward, lowering his voice. I'm not trying to take her from you. I would never, but I want to help. I want to be there. For her. For you. Alana looked up, finally meeting his eyes. And not just today, she asked. Not just for a few park visits or birthdays? No, Martin said. Every day, as long as you'll let me. Zuri stirred slightly in his arms, then sighed and nestled closer. Alana opened the door slowly. Martin stepped inside and gently laid Zuri on the couch. She curled into the cushions, one hand still clutching the unicorn backpack. He stared at her for a moment, then turned to Alana. I'm sorry, he said. For what? She asked quietly. For not knowing. For not seeing you. For not being there. Alana didn't respond with words. Instead, she nodded once. And that was enough for now. Because sometimes forgiveness doesn't come in speeches. It comes in small steps. And Martin Whitmore had just taken his first real one in the months that followed. Everything changed. For Martin Whitmore, once known for towering hotels and luxury deals, the world grew smaller in the best possible way. No boardroom decision had ever carried the weight of a 5-year-old girl tugging on his coat sleeve, asking, Can I come with you today, Dad? After that first day in the park, everything shifted. He didn't rush anything. He didn't push. He simply showed up. Weekends at the zoo, Tuesday night dinners with Alana and Zuri at a little Italian place near their apartment, bedtime stories over FaceTime when he had to travel for work. Later, they built lopsided sandcastles near the playground. Zuri insisted hers was a princess hotel, and she gave Martin the job of doorman. You have to let only nice people in, she said seriously. No meanies allowed. Got it, he replied, mimicking a deep, official voice. Princess Zuri's hotel is strictly for kind-hearted guests. She clapped, delighted. Alana sat nearby on a bench, watching them with cautious curiosity. It was like seeing two strangers find their rhythm, one unsure, the other blissfully unaware. But as the hours passed, it was clear Zuri already adored him. She didn't know who he was yet, not officially, but something in her felt it. She trusted him instinctively. As the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, Zuri leaned against Martin's side, her small hand gripping his arm as they shared a melting ice cream cone. Chocolate smeared her cheek. He wiped it gently with a napkin. You're my favorite grown-up, she said suddenly. The words hit him like lightning. He looked at her, stunned. She wasn't trying to flatter him. She wasn't even thinking about what she said. She just said it. Pure. Honest. Martin laughed, but the sound cracked with emotion. He looked away quickly, blinking back tears. You're my favorite kid, he said, brushing a lock of hair from her face. By the time they returned to the hotel that evening, Zuri was fast asleep in his arms, her head tucked under his chin, her thumbs still in her mouth. Martin carried her up through the employee entrance to avoid the main lobby, gently rocking her as they walked the quiet hallway to the staff quarters. Alana walked beside him, silent. When they reached the small 2-bedroom apartment the hotel provided for certain live-in staff, Martin paused at the door. He didn't want to hand her over. Not yet. He looked down at Zuri's sleeping face, peaceful, soft, and then at Alana. She deserves more than this, he said. Alana hesitated, her eyes searching his for sincerity. After 5 years of silence, of carrying everything alone, it was hard to trust that this sudden change meant something real. But she saw the way he spoke about Zuri, the way his voice softened when he said her name, the way he looked, not like a CEO, but like a father desperate to know the little girl he'd never been given a chance to love. She nodded. Okay, she said quietly. One weekend. But I'll be there. Of course, Martin replied. Thank you. That Saturday, the three of them went to Lincoln Park, just a short drive from the hotel. It was a sunny morning, the kind that buzzed with the energy of children squealing, bikes whirring past, and ice cream trucks playing tinny jingles in the distance. Martin hadn't been to a park in years, decades maybe. His version of leisure was golf courses and rooftop bars. He'd never sat on a bench surrounded by toddlers or helped a 5-year-old pick the best stick for poking at puddles. But that day he was all in. He wore jeans, sneakers, left his phone in the car, and he showed up, not as the billionaire hotel mogul, but just as Martin. Zuri ran ahead of them, skipping in her polka-dot leggings and carrying a pink backpack shaped like a unicorn. She squealed when she saw the ducks and immediately tugged on Martin's hand. "Do you have bread?" He blinked, then smiled. "I've got something better." He pulled out a small paper bag of seed that he'd asked his assistant to pick up that morning, after reading an article that bread was bad for ducks. Zuri's eyes lit up like he'd handed her treasure. "You're smart," she giggled. "Mama always brings bread." They sat by the pond, tossing seeds into the water. Martin watched her laugh with every splash. He found himself laughing too, so easily, so fully, it startled him. Alana's eyes softened. "She knows you," she said, "even without knowing who you are." Martin blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Alana smiled faintly, looking down. "She watches the lobby TV when you're on it. During hotel press conferences. Openings. She calls you the hotel boss. She always said you looked like a superhero." His breath caught. A lump formed in his throat that he couldn't swallow. She'd say, "Mama, that hotel boss looks like me." And I'd just smile, pretend not to hear it. But she's smart. She felt it in her bones, even if I never said a word. Martin's eyes brimmed with tears. He had never cried in boardrooms, or during mergers, or while sealing billion-dollar deals. But here he was, broken open by a 5-year-old girl who didn't even know he was her father, but saw him and believed he was something more. "She deserves to know the truth," he whispered. Alana nodded, slowly. "I know." Martin sat back, his shoulders heavy with guilt and hope. "I want to be in her life, not just writing checks or dropping it on birthdays. I want to show up. Every day, if you'll let me." Alana looked up at him, then really looked at him. And in that moment, she saw past the tailored suits and penthouse office. She saw a man who had made mistakes, but wanted to make things right. "She loves drawing," she said quietly. "And music. She'll sing along to anything, even elevator jingles." Martin chuckled through his tears. "I'd like to hear her sing someday." Alana gave a cautious smile. "Maybe you will." Outside, the hum of the hotel continued as if nothing had changed. But for Martin, and for Zuri, everything had. Martin didn't make a scene. There were no dramatic announcements, no legal threats, no media frenzy. That wasn't what this was about. This wasn't a scandal. This was a second chance. So, all he asked was one simple question. Can I spend time with her? Why hadn't Alana told him? Why had she carried this secret, day after day, year after year, working right here in his hotel, raising his child in silence? Anger surged beneath the shock. Anger at being robbed of Zuri's first words. Her first laugh. Her first steps. He slammed the folder shut, stood up, and stormed out the door. Down in the staff lounge, Alana was folding towels from the afternoon turnover. She didn't see him at first. Then she looked up and froze. Her hand stilled. A flicker of something, fear, resignation, passed through her eyes. "Mr. Whitmore," she said cautiously. "We need to talk," Martin said, voice tight but quiet. They walked in silence to one of the empty conference rooms just beyond the break area. A small space, windowless, with a circular table and 2 chairs. The kind of room usually reserved for HR meetings or union reps. Tension filled the space like static electricity. Martin sat across from her and placed the test results on the table. "Zuri is mine," he said. "Not question. A fact." Alana's eyes dropped to the folder. She didn't even reach for it. "I know," she said softly. He stared at her, emotions whirling like a storm inside him. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Alana was quiet for a moment. Her fingers fidgeted in her lap. "You were drunk," she said finally. "It was one night. You didn't even ask for my name the next morning. I figured you didn't care." Martin winced. "That's not fair," he said, though part of him knew it was. "I didn't want to seem like I was chasing money. Or your name," she continued, her voice calm but sad. "I didn't want to become one of those stories. Headlines, lawyers, cameras outside our apartment. I just wanted to raise her in peace. But I missed 5 years," he said, his voice cracking. 5 years. I wasn't there when she learned to talk, or when she scraped her knee, or the first time she drew a picture and said it was her family." More silence. He steadied his voice. I need to ask, is she mine? A long pause, and then her voice, barely a whisper. Yes. The word shattered everything he thought he knew. Zuri wasn't just a look-alike. She was his daughter. And Martin Whitmore, the man who had built an empire from nothing, suddenly realized there was one legacy more important than anything he'd ever built. His own blood. Martin didn't confront Alana right away. He told himself it was out of respect, that it was better to handle things with care. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean if the answer was yes. Afraid of what kind of father he might be after 5 whole years of not even knowing. So instead, he called his personal lawyer. I need a discreet paternity test, he said, voice low and serious. No court filings. No gossip. I want this private. Samples were taken quietly. Zuri's from a used cup she left in a hotel cafe. Martin's from a fresh swab at home. No one outside his legal team knew. And then he waited. A week passed. Each day felt like a silent storm, building in pressure. He would catch himself glancing toward the service hallways when walking through the lobby. He noticed the housekeeping carts now, wondering if Alana was behind one of them. He looked for signs of Zuri, her laughter, the pink ribbon in her hair, anything. And then the envelope arrived. No grand delivery. Just a plain manila folder slid under his penthouse door one morning. Martin sat at his desk and opened it with trembling hands. Probability of paternity, 99.8%. He read the line 3 times before he let it sink in. Zuri was his daughter. His. The air seemed to vanish from the room. He leaned back in his chair, gripping the paper like it might float away. It felt surreal, like the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. But this was real, and now he was 5 years too late. He struck up a conversation. She was shy at first, but kind. They talked about travel. She'd always dreamed of seeing Morocco. He joked about owning a hotel there someday. She laughed. He remembered how her laugh surprised him. Genuine, soft, real. One thing led to another. The rest blurred. They ended up in his suite that night. Just one night. There were no calls afterward. No messages. He didn't ask for a number, and she never offered it. It was understood, a moment, nothing more. At least, that's what he thought. But now, Zuri. He dropped into the leather chair beside the fireplace, holding the photo in both hands like it could answer the questions piling in his chest. Had Alana been pregnant? Had she tried to tell him? Was she scared? Angry? Or maybe she just decided she didn't want anything from him. The idea cut deeper than he expected. He was a billionaire. He could give that child everything. Education, safety, love, a name. And yet, Alana had raised her alone. He thought about Zuri's eyes again, how they lit up when she saw him. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't coincidence. It was recognition. Instinct. Blood calling to blood. Martin stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city looked so small from up here. Tiny, manageable. But this wasn't something he could manage with spreadsheets or lawyers. This was human. Messy. Real. He needed to know the truth. And not from a photo. Not from memories. From Alana. He grabbed his phone and stared at the screen. No assistant. No estudiante. Just him. He pulled up the hotel employee directory and typed in her name, Alana James. Housekeeping department. Her number was listed for internal contact. He hesitated for just a second, then hit call. It rang once. Twice. Then click. Hello. Her voice was cautious. Alana, he said quietly. It's Martin Whitmore. Silence. Then a breath. Yes, Mr. Whitmore. I saw the photo, he said. I remember that night. I remember you. She was the spitting image of him. It wasn't his imagination, and it wasn't wishful thinking. He knew his own face. The curve of her chin, the soft curls, the dimples that only popped when she smiled. She wasn't just similar. She was his. Had to be. Martin stood up and walked over to a sleek walnut cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened the bottom drawer and reached to the back, pulling out a small leather box. Inside were scattered remnants of a past life he rarely acknowledged. Old cufflinks, name badges from charity galas, and a few loose photographs he never hung. He flipped through them with sudden urgency until one caught his eye. It was from a company holiday party, maybe 6, 7 years ago, back when he still drank too much, partied too hard, and moved through women like they were seasons. Enjoyable in the moment, forgotten the next. The photo was slightly bent at the corner, a little grainy under the dim lighting of the ballroom. But the people in it were unmistakable. There she was, Alana, standing by the bar in a burgundy dress, her smile polite but reserved. She had her hair pulled back in a bun, and her eyes, they looked right at the camera, unaware she'd be part of a memory frozen in time. And next to her, him, leaning on the bar with a glass in hand, smiling. Too much confidence in his posture. He remembered that version of himself all too well. Arrogant, untouchable, careless. That night came back in fragments. He'd hosted a staff appreciation party, one of the first years after opening the hotel. Staff from every department had been invited. The champagne flowed like water, the music too loud to think. He'd stayed long after the top executives left, dancing, laughing, flirting. She'd been standing alone, sipping soda water, looking like she didn't belong. He looked down again at Zuri, who now clung to her mother's leg, watching both adults like she understood more than she should. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even sure what he felt, except lost and maybe responsible. "I want to talk," he said finally, privately, "when you're off your shift." Ariel nodded slowly, uncertainly. Martin bent down to Zuri again and offered a soft smile. "It was nice to meet you, Zuri." She giggled and waved. "Bye, Daddy." Ariel flushed, but Martin didn't flinch this time. He simply nodded, then turned and walked back to his table, mind spinning with questions no boardroom had ever prepared him for. Because in a single moment, one word from a little girl, a man who thought he had everything realized he might have missed the one thing that mattered most. Family. The woman's name was Alana. She worked in housekeeping, had been at the Blue Ivy Hotel for almost 6 years. Always on time, never caused a stir. The kind of employee that kept her head down and did her job so well she blended into the background. Martin had never paid attention, not like he did now. That night, as the glittering skyline of the city flickered outside his penthouse windows, Martin Whitmore sat alone in silence. The clink of his glass on the marble coffee table was the only sound in the room. He hadn't touched the scotch he poured. Couldn't. His hand just rested there, fingers gripping the glass, staring blankly at the golden liquid inside. But his mind was racing. Again and again, he replayed the moment in the restaurant like a reel on loop. The small voice echoing through the air. The way she said "Dad" without hesitation. Her tiny arms around his leg. The eyes looking up at him like he was her whole world. Zuri. He whispered the name under his breath. This hotel, his hotel, was known for those very golden doors. Imported from Italy. Every child in the staff quarters must have seen them. But that wasn't what shook him. It was the way she said it, as if she'd been told. He looked up at the mother, Ariel. She looked young, maybe late 20s, beautiful even through the panic. Her name didn't ring a bell, but that meant little. He'd built this hotel empire over the last 15 years. There had been women, affairs, nights blurred by stress and champagne. Some names got lost in the haze. But this couldn't be. "Sir," Ariel said softly, her voice trembling now. "Please. She's just a kid. She hears stories and makes things up. I didn't mean for this to happen. I don't want trouble." Martin studied her face. And just like with the girl, something familiar stirred deep in his memory. A laugh. A night. A name. Ariel. He had met her. Briefly. Years ago. Back when this hotel had just opened its first West Coast location. He was celebrating the launch with investors. She'd been a server, or maybe a trainee in hospitality. They had spoken during an after-hours staff party. Shared a drink. A spark. And then, one night, that's all it had been. No calls. No follow-up. He had forgotten. She clearly hadn't. Martin's eyes dropped back to Zuri. The resemblance was now impossible to ignore. The same chin. The same ears that stuck out just a little at the top. And then there were her dimples, those damn dimples. "Ariel," he said, standing slowly. "Is she mine?" Silence. The restaurant had gone back to buzzing softly, but their little corner remained frozen in time. Ariel looked away, swallowing hard. I didn't want anything from you, she said at last. I never planned on telling you. You were building an empire. I was barely making rent. Martin felt something in his chest twist. I tried to move on. I applied here later, not knowing you in the place. I swear. It's just a job to support her. The clatter of silverware froze midair. Guests at the luxurious Blue Ivy Hotel turned their heads as a child's tiny voice echoed off the polished marble floors. Dad! Martin Whitmore, founder and CEO of the Whitmore Hotel Group, a man used to controlling entire empires with a single phone call, stood completely still. His hand hovered above the linen-covered table, fork halfway to his mouth. And the little girl? She was no more than 5, in a pink dress with her hair tied up in playful puffs. She had thrown her arms around his leg with all the bold certainty only a child could possess. Her smile was wide, her eyes bright, her joy unshaken. Martin looked down. Then he blinked, and blinked again, because looking into her face was like staring into a miniature version of himself. Same wide-set brown eyes, same soft curls, even a slight cowlick on the right side, same dimples that only appeared when smiling, just like his had when he was her age. 1,000 thoughts crashed in his head, but before he could say a word, another voice cut through the silence, this time frantic. Zuri, the sound of hurried footsteps. A young black woman in a neatly pressed housekeeping uniform, badge reading A. James, rushed forward, her face drained of color, her eyes wide with alarm. She knelt beside the girl, gently pulling her back. I'm so sorry, sir, she said quickly, breathless. She's just confused. She must have seen someone on TV. She didn't mean it. Martin didn't move. Couldn't. He stared at the young woman and then back at the girl, his mind racing faster than his mouth could keep up. No, his voice cracked. It's okay. He knelt down slowly, leveling his eyes with the child. What's your name? He asked gently. I'm Zuri, she beamed. My mommy's name is Ariel, and she said my daddy is important and has a big building with gold doors. Ariel froze. Martin's stomach flipped.